do you feel like the fact that we're kind of in the late stages of the larger economic cycle, do you feel like that has any implications on any of the decisions that we're making now, or are we still kind of, is that process just so drawn out that we have time and they're not really related?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think the late cycleness is actually when you think about how these dynamics work, like you want to understand the magnitude of the inflationary impulse and then how it's flowing through to other prices in the economy. And each economy is different. And so, for instance, like the inflationary impulse in the UK was larger in magnitude, and many of the prices are more connected fundamentally. Many of the other prices in the economy are connected more fundamentally to that inflationary impulse versus, say, the US, where the inflationary impulse was mostly, in certain discretionary goods and then in oil very specifically. And lots of the stuff we don't spend on, we spend on like services. We didn't see that initial impulse. So you gotta think about it that way, but then you want to think about it in the context of where you are in the cycle, because where you are in the cycle determines the likelihood that labor has the ability to negotiate for higher wages in response to that inflationary impulse. And so what we've seen is actually very normal, which is inflation comes in, real wages fall. And to be clear, real wages today are lower than they were in 2020, right? Real wages are down. And so then what happens is, can people negotiate higher wages comes down to, is the economy in a later cycle environment? Is the labor market tight? And the answer to that question in this case is yes, the labor market is tight, which is why what we're seeing is we're seeing wage growth, nominal wage growth going at, 5 or 6%. And that is a function of the fact that people have been able to negotiate higher wages. I was just before we started, I was looking at the Atlanta Fed wage tracker, which is the best sort of comprehensive source on wages for a variety of reasons. And what it was showing was that, nominal wage growth has come down a little bit from peak, which is kind of what you'd expect. I mean, conditions have softened just a touch and the wage and inflation pressures have softened. But what you're seeing is, for a while, it was only job switchers that got meaningful upgrades in their wages. But now you're seeing job switchers and job stayers getting the same amount of wage growth. And that's a perfect example. Those are the stages of the inflationary dynamic flowing through, which is first an impulse, negative real wages, then people who are switching jobs to negotiate for higher wages, then people who are staying in their job have the ability to negotiate for higher wages, right? And that's sort of the permeation of the inflationary pressure through the economy, which is really a function of how tight labor markets are.